Good evening, Elements Jiu-Jitsu family. This is Coach Justin coming at you with our last day of this week for because tomorrow is Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I hope it all is good for all you guys if you decide to watch this. Today is going to be our last day working the lockdown. What I'm going to show you guys today, since I showed you a lot of the positions yesterday, I'm going to show you some of the submission options that you have when you are working the lockdown. There's really only two main, or there's the one main position for submissions from this position. There's about 4 submissions you can do off of it in the attack for the attack purposes. Let's get started, and I'll show you. I'll do a little review, and then and then take you to submissions. Okay, so got Bob here, and we're gonna start Bob in the lockdown. Right. I remember the lockdown is just an option when your opponent got you. So your opponent got you. They forgot to move some stuff. Hold on, sorry. Move the cameras first, right? People can see what's going on. Sorry about that palm shot. Okay. So again, the lockdown is a position you set up when your opponent makes you flat on your back already, right? We don't want to be flat on our back when we're in half guard. But when our opponent happens to do everything right, and not saying that we do it wrong, but we just happen to not do everything perfectly, then then we end up in half guard, right? So we're here in half guard. Remember, this foot goes over, holding that leg down like this, that inside leg down, and then this foot, so now he's crushing me, and I'm pretty well not in a good position, right? So what we do then is we basically need to say, okay, so either we're just about to pass, or I need to control their legs, and the best way to do that is with a lockdown. In my opinion, it really is the best way to control the leg. If we try to just do like a figure 4 and squeeze, sure, that'll work, but that's definitely a stalling position. I can't get my hips underneath me to do anything in this position because I can't move their hips, right? There is an alternate to this. You do like a reverse lockdown. So instead of trying to go, just trying to come here or trying to come here, if you do sort of a reverse lockdown on the outside, then it's harder for them to get their leg out. So right here, this is where you can go if you feel like you want to keep them from getting out. So what's happening is if my foot's over here, they're going to flip this leg over underneath my foot and then come up and pass. We've done cross knee passes in the past, so it's real easy for them to do a cross knee pass. But they need to be able to move their foot, they need to be able to move their hips over and their leg over this way. If I put this in a reverse lockdown like this, they can't do that, and so they're basically stuck, right? You're not going to be able to do anything in a reverse lockdown, but they're basically stuck. So that is an option if you just want to like stick people where you're at, or if you have if you've got a sort of a frame, you can do the reverse lockdown, which is on the outside. And like I said, it doesn't have the same controlling capabilities. So remember, with the regular lockdown, it's the leg on the outside goes over. Figure 4 is the leg on the inside, and then controls this leg with your foot. See? So there's my foot controlling this leg. There's my other leg, so they can't escape. All right. Now I'm showing this side angle because what's going to happen is all of the potential submissions are off of one sweep, and this is kind of why it's like the main sweep in the in the lockdown series, okay? So remember, we had old school. So when I'm deep underneath, I reach and grab that foot, right? Then we have the twist back where my opponent's leg, outside leg, pops up and puts his post on his leg. So I C-cup underneath his knee, and then then he flips over like that. And when you do that, there's no amount of pushing that your opponent's going to be able to do in order to keep that from happening, right? So the electric chair is the one where all of the submissions go off of, okay? And there are 4 submissions that you can do here that this is part of the reason why this is intermediate techniques, not only because of how difficult or how advanced, how it's more complicated than a regular technique, but it's also because most of these have been relegated to the higher belt levels in terms of finishes. So if you're a white belt, you want to practice these in class, cool. But if you go up to competitions, or you do competitions and you want to submit your opponent, this is not always legal. Okay, one of them is actually more illegal than the other ones, and I'll get to that when I get there. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with either the jaws of life. So I'm going to get this hand on this underhook hand inside. I'm going to create space, get in front of the face, create more space, get my double unders like so, up and over. Okay, or I'm going to do whip down. All right, remember whip down is I'm going to go up, try to go to the left when they post so they don't get swept. This hand goes inside. I'm going to reach to the sky and come over. Okay, so let's go to the electric chair. This is by far my favorite sweep. All right, and the way it works is when I'm here, okay, and I'm down here and I'm tight, I get my arm inside the leg. Okay, so the arm comes through the leg right here, right? I'm on my side, and then I'm going to pull, right, and extend and get them to come here. Okay, so my first position is here, right? A lot of people will think if I push hard enough, I can come back from this. And so you can't really see George's or Bob's head here, but if I move back just a little bit, you can see that Bob's head down. Okay, and even here, I can't finish the sweep if they don't turn over. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try for the one of the electric chair leg splitters. Okay, so you'll see basically I'm making my opponent sort of do the splits here, and this is the first one that tests their flexibility. Okay, so notice what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this hand here and I'm going to put it over the knee, and then I'm going to take this hand here and I'm going to grab my hands together. This top elbow is going to come in tight like this, and then once I'm here, I'm going to turn my body down like this, and that's going to stretch the groin area. We actually call variations of this move the crotch ripper, okay? Because it doesn't focus so much on the joints like a lot of moves in jiu-jitsu do, or strangulation. This focuses on pulling at the muscles. So if someone's not flexible enough and you really got this in tight and really wrenched into it, you probably would tear some muscles, which doesn't take as long to repair as a joint submission, but it definitely can make it hard to do jiu-jitsu if you do this too fast. So again, you're going to reach up and grab the knee up high like this. Then you're going to tuck this elbow and gable grip like this. So now, see how this arm is real tight to my body? And I'm just going to turn down like this. The difference here is that this hand is higher than the knee, right? And the reason why I say that is because there's going to be a second one where it's going to be kind of the opposite, right? So sometimes this doesn't work. This is a flexibility thing. You know, sometimes people are real good and flexible. So this doesn't work. So what's the next step? So the next step is to move this leg over the head, okay? Because this is not necessarily how you're going to sweep somebody. There's actually a second way we're going to use to sweep somebody. But before we get there, let's finish. Let's say they do let you sweep them. Okay, so Bob decides I'm gonna let him sweep me. So he turns his back, so I come up. All right, now as I come up, you'll notice I want to keep his leg on my shoulder, because if I get it down here on my arm, he can sometimes push that real hard and get his legs back in, and now it's half guard, but I'm on top. So I want to get my best possible position as I can, so I want to keep this up high. Okay, so when I come over the top like this, right, what I can do here is I can do a knee bar. All right, so there's a knee bar from the bottom that I can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unhook that lockdown, and I'm actually going to, it's going to be this bottom side knee bar here. And I'm going to sort of slide down, and I'm going to grab underneath the thigh right here. So down here at the thigh, I'm going to reach down, and I'm going to grab underneath there. Okay, so boom, and boom. And then here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my hips like this and drive down like that. All right, that's going to really be all you need to do. It seems like it might be more complicated than that because of the way you think the knee needs to be set up. But it's this sort of magical biology thing where as you open your legs up, you're taking the space away from the knee, and the knee wants to settle in the least stressful part, which is the last part, the part where you need it to be, which is the knee cap straight up. And then once you've got that settled in place, then you can start to drive your hips, and you get your knee bar. Okay. So again, so I was here, I was in the lockdown, I'm up here, right? So I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to slide down here, and then I'm going to open my legs up, and then drive and almost lift the leg up using my legs. So I've really tried to open my hips up. I'm not trying to extend down like this. I'm trying to open down like that. Okay, you see the difference? So again, I'm not trying to go straight down like this. Okay, I'm trying to open down like that. Because your hips can go both ways, right? So I'm trying to basically get the inside of my legs to the mat that way. If I was trying to go here, I'd be trying to get the top of my thighs to the mat. That's what we want. We want the inside of the legs. So we're going to open that up and then lift it up like that. We're going to use our arms underneath the legs to keep that in place. So that's one submission you can do from that transition, or to the second one. So the first one we got is that leg stretcher, crotch ripper submission, and the second one is the knee bar. All right. So now we're going to go into a variation where they don't turn over, and what you need to do in order to deal with that. So. So when you're in the electric chair position, like this, okay? When you're in this position, the pressure you're putting on is on the inner and outer thigh of this unit you got going on here, okay? And when you grab for this position and start to turn down, right? That's when people might flip to their back, and that's when you can come up. They don't flip to their back. They're trying to push. They're going to increase the stress on their thighs, and that's what's going to make them submit. Okay. Now, if they don't, if they're real flexible and they decide I'm gonna stay up here like this, what you're going to do is you're going to move their leg over from one side to the other. Now you want to be careful in this transition, because if you are too loose, then a lot of guys can actually pull this leg out and then just come back to a seated position. And you don't want that, right? It's a totally different thing. Like I've had guys come out and swing this leg out like I'm trying to pass this over and I get too loose, and they swing this leg out, and they sit up on me, and then you got to dump them the other way, and it's kind of rough. So this is just what you want to do. Now, Eddie had a way of doing this that was pretty cool. He actually had a thing where he like reached up over his head so that he could keep this here and then keep this here until he could pass this off. That's a good way to do it, right? So if the leg's up here, okay, I'm going to reach up behind the leg like this so that I can pull it off, because it doesn't want to come off very easily. If I try to use this hand, that's when you can lose that leg. So if I'm here like this and I try to do this to pull this off, see how loose this is? People can slide through and get through. We want this higher, right? So a good way, like I said, a good way to combat that particular move is you can hold this high and hold this high and try to keep it tight as you go across, or you can hold this high and come over here and try to do it that way. That's another thing you can do. So once you're here, how do we do the other one? Well, that one, kind of the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my hands together again, and I'm going to try this move again. Like, you know what? Now that I think about it, I think I had that backwards, but it's fine. So with this move, you're going to have your hands together, and you're actually going to kind of try to go, you're going to try to do the same thing. You're going to extend out, and you're going to try to twist. And this time you're going to try to twist up. So I think I had it backwards with this one. It's been a while since I've tried to submit somebody with this. I think it's actually down low like this on this one. And then when you get this leg over to the other side, it's easier to do it up high and try to twist this way. And again, that's a positioning of the legs. But, you know, it's always play around with it, you know, like get a partner and try this out and play around with it and see which hand positioning works. Again, I think when they're down low like this, when their leg's down here, it's going to be easier to go high. And when they're up here like this, it's going to be easier to bring this all the way over. But again, it's a hand positioning thing. And that's not really a submission I like to do, because most of the time when I do this to people, they'll either come up or whatever. But again, if you're a smaller person and you're attempting these moves, this isn't going to be the easiest thing to do, right? So once you get here and you try this one, the next thing you want to do is you need to get this shoulder out from underneath this. Now, the best way to do that is a similar positioning to the other one. You're going to take this arm over here. You're going to grab this foot so you can get this arm out and replace it. Now, I'm sitting up, okay? Now, at this point, I'm over this leg, and I've got this leg twisted up. If you want a really good example of this position, if you have not seen the Metamoris Royler Gracie versus Eddie Bravo fight, this is the position that Eddie Bravo got Royler in, okay? At this point, Royler turned around to face Eddie, or got to his back to face Eddie, and Eddie had him in head and arm, okay? Because this is what we're going to do. We want to go for a calf crank. It's like a calf crank weird heel hook called the vaporizer. And, you know, now that we live in the age that we live in, everyone should kind of know what a vaporizer is. But in this case, the whole point of the name is that it vaporizes your knee, essentially. And if you watch that fight, again, it's a Metamoris fight between Royler and Eddie. You'll see that Royler's knees are pretty flexible because Eddie had some weird twisting going on there. And it's an interesting fight, mainly because depending on what camp you're in, you might think you won that fight. But like people who know 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu will see that Eddie had really good control that whole time. You know, he started off in quarter guard and worked his way to lockdown, and then worked his way to electric chair, went into this position here, and then eventually made it to there's actually a couple he had to reset a couple of times because Royler is really flexible. He's got really flexible shoulders, and Eddie did like 100% on him. And it's 100% is a position where you could neck crank somebody, and his shoulders were allowed him to do some crazy stuff. So again, recommend checking out that fight. So you can, and actually I would even recommend, there's a slightly longer version of it where Eddie talks about the fight. I think it's a clip from the Joe Rogan podcast, but he has some insight into what he was thinking, and it's pretty cool. So anyway, lockdown. So now we got this lockdown. We're over here in this this weird position. What we're gonna do is we're going to come up, right, and we're gonna come up and be here. Okay. So I'm sitting. You can see his leg is across his hip. I'm laying on top of it, and I've got this head and arm. All right. Now, what my ultimate goal is, I'm actually going to dive under, and I'm going to reach for this leg over here because, like I said, I'm going to do what's called a vaporizer. Okay. Now, it's possible to do it from your opponent sitting this way. So if your opponent's still on all fours and you happen to be here, you can pull your opponent like this, come up here, and then see this. See how this foot is all jacked up over here? I can get here and grab this foot and then pull it toward me. There's your, you can actually turn, this is because the angle on the foot. If you have somebody, you'll see this calf crank heel hook combo, all right? Again, called vaporizer. And this works if the person doesn't, make the, doesn't turn onto their back, all right? But if they do turn onto their back, this is what Eddie did to Royler. So if they do turn onto their back, what you're gonna do is you're gonna just turn like this, grab that foot, just like you did on the other side, but you're gonna roll through. So just like that, right? Now, hopefully you can see this position. Let's see. Yeah. So this is the position that Royler and Eddie ended up in. Something to this effect. And Eddie had his pants like this, and Royler grabbed hold of Eddie's pants and wouldn't let them go. So Eddie's trying to pull on this leg, and Royler is not letting go of Eddie's pants. So he can't get what he wants, which is this foot here to apply extra pressure to his heel like that. So this move would really kill a normal person's knee, right? You can see how my leg inside here is allowing for leverage across the knee. This is probably black belt, brown belt division type attack because it's very, very dangerous. But yeah, when Eddie rolled in, he was kind of like this, and Royler grabbed his pants and held it there. So that's a good way to defend against this position if anybody ever does that, is during the gi. If you're in no gi, it's not going to work. Nothing to grab onto. You're here. I put my foot here, and I pull and push, and boom, your knee is just obliterated. Okay, so I know I spent a lot of time in that position, so I'll kind of try to start from the beginning to walk you through it one more time for those of you who don't quite know exactly how I got to where I got to. Okay. Okay. Ooh, that's not done. There's him. Okay. So one more time. This time I'll take sort of a back seat so you can see on the back position. And I'll do the jaws of life on this one for those of you who still have trouble with names and stuff. Okay. All right, so I'm here doing my lockdown with my half lotus in, pushing down. I'm going to take this hand, which is the side that he has over, and I'm going to put it inside his armpit and make a fist. So I've So maybe I have to like wedge it with my hand. Now I made a fist. Push away. This hand comes inside. Push away. I'm gonna go C cup on this armpit, and then C, then come back down and come back C cup on this armpit. And I'm gonna lift him up. I'm gonna set him down and be real low, like this. Then I'm just gonna reach for that underside as deep as I can go. Then I'm going to turn like this, bring this hand inside. Now I'm in my electric chair. Okay, so I'm in my electric chair. Now from here, remember, I've got one submission. I can come down here. Okay, then I'm going to hold and then move this foot over. And then now I've got submission number 2. Standing up against the head. And then I'm going to reach up, grab the foot, like so I can keep, so my arms can come through, and then once my arm's through, I'm going to sit up. Now I'm going to vaporize by pulling this foot here up like so, okay? If my opponent decides he's going to turn to his back, I actually sit up with them here. Now I don't have to go for that submission. I just want to make that clear. I don't have to go for that submission. I can just let this go and I can come out. So it's not like it's the only thing to do here. Real easy for me just to unhook my legs, get this leg out, come around to the outside, control, and go back into side control, okay? But to finish for the submission, here and here, I'm in my lockdown position. I'm going to rotate, reach, same side, arm to the foot. Drop my shoulder, make this roll. You can do it. There we go. And there we go. Now that I'm here, pull that leg down. That doesn't work. This foot comes inside to push and pull that leg down to give me extra leverage. Okay. So that is a whole set of whole process of moves that we can do from the lockdown. Besides all the sweeps and stuff that I showed you over the last few days, you can do those submissions from the lockdown. There is actually one other submission you can do from the lockdown. And you can only do it with the lockdown half guard in. And it is a arm triangle from the bottom with the lockdown in. And it's definitely something you sometimes have to look out for, especially if people know what they're doing with it. I know that when Eddie was first doing this, I think he caught this on a couple people. I know some of his students did. So I'll show you this one because it piggybacks on the arm triangle, which I've already gone over in the past, and defenses to it, but never from the bottom. So, so I'll show you what that looks like. Okay. All right, Bob, get on your belly again. Okay. So this doesn't happen too often, but it does happen. Okay. And when you have your lockdown in and your opponent's knee comes up here, you can extend this down and it'll move your opponent's whole body down. Okay. So what happens is you've got this overhook and this underhook, right? And your opponent wants to transition to something where he's like turned onto his side. Okay. Sometimes your opponent will use this sort of leg flattening thing. So on this side, they'll flatten their leg out and they'll bring this arm over. All right. Now when they bring this arm over, if it doesn't make it past this arm, that's the mistake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this triangle by bringing it up. And then I use this hand here to S grip. Okay, so this arm's in the right position, can't really go anywhere. This arm's in the right position, head can't really go anywhere. I S grip. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to get this over my head like this to get that in as tight as I can. The farther over your head you can get it, the better. So it is a little difficult for myself on a regular person, but it's completely doable for most people. So again, I get this arm here. I'm going to S grip. And I'm going to fit my head through my arms here like this. And then once I'm here, I'm going to extend and squeeze like this. And by extending, you're actually pushing the shoulder into their body. You don't have to use as much like muscle to try to muscle this. Like a normal triangle choke, if I could go here and here, then that's how we would do it. But then I'd still need to come out to the side, right? With the lockdown, once I get this in, like I could even use this to sort of bump them up a little bit if I wanted to get them a little deeper. Try to get it really deep under the shoulder, here and here, get that in. Now I can really extend that out, and I'm really gonna get choked on that one. The extension is really important. So if your opponent somehow manages to like flip that leg off, it's not gonna work, okay? The extension is really important in this. And if you control the angle, right? If I'm controlling the head and the arm already, then I can not have to, then they shouldn't be able to get their foot out. Some people are flexible enough. Some people have the right like hip mobility or whatever. There are various reasons why that might happen. But it's possible that even when when you go for this, they could flip that foot out. And that's how you defend against this, okay? So one more time, I'm here, and I've got this overhook here, and I've got this underhook here, and I'm trying to like get my underhook. I'm trying to fight for this or whatever. And he goes, okay, there's this move I'm going to do. Instead of trying to like do a thing, I'm going to push this leg off. So I want to turn that way. So as he starts to turn that way, he makes the mistake of not allowing this arm to go all the way through before extending it. All right, and I'll tell you what that means in a minute. But so he decides, I'm going to go over here first, on this side of his head. There's where the mistake is made. So I'm going to go boom, and I'm going to try to lift him up and grab these hands together. And then once the hands are grabbed together, I'm going to go S grip, climb the head, extend, and squeeze. Really trying to get that in there. Now it may be a slow choke. All right, it may be a slow choke. It may take time for it to actually come in, but you shouldn't have to stretch your arms out so much. It's about your legs. So once you get that S grip and this over, you just hunker down and just keep extending and holding. And sometimes, as it happens, when you have a choke like this and it's not really like the most strangulating of chokes, they might pass out. But if you've done it enough, you do it enough, and this is perfectly legal. All right, and everything from beginners to black belt, this is a perfectly legal move. Okay, so remember that. Okay, and a lot of people will, when you get a lockdown, turn into you like this. But if they turn into you and they get that arm over your shoulder, but not over this arm, that's when you can do this move. Okay, so one more time. You're here, they're squeezing, nothing's working, you don't know what to do, like you're still pretty kind of low level. So you wait a second, and then they go, I'm going to bring this arm over, and boom, you just snap that arm in place using this arm like that. S grip together, bring this up, and then bring it down. Okay, and that's a really good combination there. So if I'm here and I S grip and I hold, and then I use my lockdown to pull them up so I get the head over and then pull it down. That's where the choking is going to happen, right there. Okay? So that, I think, is one of the few that you can do. There is another slight variation that you could do if they're not super thoughtful about the positioning. Well, it's not a submission, so I'm not going to show you. It's actually just a transition in case they continue to put their head over there. But yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't think there's anything else from that position. Just sweep, sweep, electric chair with its multiple submissions, top or bottom, flat with its arm triangle, and yeah. I think a lot of people would try for that position because they want to try to Kimura you on this side. So like, and that's okay. So like if they try to get this arm deep inside this arm, underneath this arm here, that's okay because you can still reach up over the top, especially if they don't have control of this wrist. Like one thing they'll try to do is control this wrist, especially in half guard. But if you got the lockdown, you should have good mobility with your hips to do these moves. Okay. Maybe ending this a little early, but I think that's a good place to stop. That's a kind of a, like I said, these are kind of intermediate positions with some advanced ideas, and it's a lot of movement drills and stuff. But again, if you're interested in learning more about it and in more in different formats, like I said, Eddie Bravo is the guy that popularized this move, this position, and he has lots of material out there for it. But the difference being that you can get a hold of me if you have questions. He's much harder to get a hold of. I'm not saying it's impossible because there are channels of communication to get to him, but he's much more difficult to get a hold of than I am. You can DM me with questions, Turcot TUR, Justin, and if you're friends with George, I'm friends with George. So if you want to message me that's fine. I'm happy to help out with details and whatnot. And so next week, which I believe we're still in lockdown, I will be happy to continue our basics, general basics class. And I think next week I'll be going back to guard, unless I have a partner, in which case we'll do some stand-up. So we'll see where we're at. And again, if anybody wants to be my partner, please let me know. I'd love to have somebody to work with at least until we get back to regular schedule. Okay. Again, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next week.